lifestyle has caught fire, and we talk about the rewards and challenges of it. This is the Wandering Worker Podcast with Matt Lloyd.
Yes, I am Matt Lloyd, the host of the Wandering Worker Podcast. Believe it or not, when everyone started working remote in earnest a few years after that COVID thing happened, instead of like fighting it, our company truly embraced it. And that's something that we felt really strongly about. So if you have questions or topics that can be discussed, hit us up on our website at thewanderingworkerpodcast.com. As always, this show is powered by my company, Magic Apple Technology, where we've been saving good businesses from bad phone systems since 2008. Today, I'm very excited to have my very good friend and guest, Michael Ramsey from PAI Medical, WeGrowHair.com. Michael, thank you for being on the show today.
Thank you, Matt. It's good to be here.
So I want to just kind of, number one, learn a little bit about you. Tell us about yourself. Tell us about your business. And then we want to dive into the working remotely, because you were the person I was like, I want to be Michael. You know, is that saying in the 80s with Michael, I want to be like Mike? Well, this is my Michael Jordan right here. This is the guy I wanted to be like, because he travels, he does RVs, he takes an RV with his wife and they travel, but he still has a business. He still works and he still gets stuff done. So I find that to be really, really great. So if you don't mind, tell us a little bit about yourself, Michael.
Yeah. So, I own a company in town called PAI Medical Group, or WeGrowHair.com. Many people know us by that, and probably our billboards.
Those great billboards everywhere that are literally everywhere in Nashville.
Well, thank you. So why am I in this business? Well, when I was 28, I started to notice that my hairline was moving back, and I didn't like it. I was voted best hair in high school, so it was like really a problem.
It's a piece of your identity,
like,
right?
Oh my God, what's happening? So as it continued to recede, I continued to get more uncomfortable with it. So at the time, infomercials were the thing back then. So you'd see these infomercials, and I saw one living in Atlanta at the time, and went in for a consultation just to find out what the whole thing was about. Is it real? Does it work? Is it a joke? And back then they were called hair plugs, because that's what they looked like. They looked like a cornfield of hair.
I've seen that
on a person's hairline, and it looked awful. But fortunately, what I had done was a little newer version of that, and it grew, and it didn't go away anymore. So it was permanent, which was a cool thing. And I decided to see if I could, help other people with a similar problem. So I got recruited by the company that did my procedure, and then one thing led to another, and we've been in Nashville now for about 30 years. So we've helped lots of people with the same challenges that I had. Yeah. Doesn't bother everybody, but for the people it does bother, we're here to help them kind of navigate that solution and what it looks like.
Yeah, and it's come such a long way, right? Because it used to be, but you have to get like either tape or glue, or then the push button, locking mechanisms for a toupee or something. And now it's all, let's come up with a natural way to make this happen and look real and everything. So.
Yeah, it's a big difference from the old hair pieces that you would sort of tape on or stick on or whatever.
Yeah.
To actually taking a person's own hair and just borrowing some of the hair seeds that were in the back where they had more than they needed, and just move those to the area where the patient needed it. Basically plant those little hair seeds, if you will. It's a surgery, but to make it simple. And those little seeds would prosper and grow and be permanent. So, it's very cool. It's very rewarding to help people with a similar problem that I had. So it's easy to get passionate about it, and it's just easy to love.
I imagine that there's a pretty big smile on the face of a guy who came in without a lot of hair, and then 18 months later he comes back in and he's got a full head of hair. I imagine that's a pretty rewarding feeling for both of you, right?
It's such a rush when you see that guy when he comes in for the first time, just not sure what he should or shouldn't do.
Yeah.
And helping hold his hand through the process, and see him come in, 12, 14, 18 months later for his follow-up, and the first thing you see is a big smile on his face before he even notices his hair.
Yeah.
And we help women as well, but for the longest time it was mostly a men-oriented thing. But lots of women deal with it too. So
sure. Yeah. I probably shouldn't have just said, guys, you're right. So Michael and I have known each other now for going on 8 years, right? It'll be 8 years this year, correct?
That's right.
We've been members of what's called the EO Nashville chapter. So that's the Entrepreneurs Organization, which is a global organization of entrepreneurs. And Michael and I have been a part of that for the last 8 years. And we've also been within EO in a forum. So that's usually a group of 6 to 8 guys, or 8 to 10, whatever, of entrepreneurs together that you meet once a month. You spend a lot of time and you really get to know those people. So Michael and I have been very, very close for the last 8 years. I mean, seriously, because we know almost everything there is to know about each other. Would you agree with that?
I would say that's absolutely true.
So, and that's where I learned about his awesome existence and what he has been doing with his business, number one, because he's, Michael, you're a lot like me in that you like processes. We both follow Traction or EOS. I let you do that first, and then I followed because I want you to figure out what's broken, and so I don't have to reinvent the wheel. And you do that because you want to be able to have work-life balance.
Right. Completely.
You're at a time in your life just like me. I don't have kids at home anymore. I'm an empty nester. I want to be able to go and not go without, right? I want to be able to go see things, do things, but not at the neglect of my business or the neglect of other things. Tell me a little bit about your experiences traveling and doing that with the business. I know you've had some good stuff. It's not all positive too, right? But tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, so for the longest time, I couldn't figure out the piece. How can I kind of withdraw my part or withdraw from the business and have the business still do well and prosper and grow and help people?
Right.
And I read a book called Traction, which you know about, we've talked about, and it helped me kind of understand those processes and those pieces and all the data part and the people part and marketing and sales part.
Yeah.
And it provided a pathway for me to step away from the business and become a visionary, essentially kind of help from a 10,000-foot viewpoint.
Right.
But you hear people say from time to time, you don't want to work in your business, you want to work on your business. And I was sort of pulled into the business all the time. So I'd heard about the book a couple of times, and my wife and I'd always wanted to travel and see things because, like you, when you have a small business, especially in the early stages, it's very consuming. It's all the time, 24/7 sometimes. So our goal was always to be able to travel and sort of work remotely. So during the pandemic and right before that, we started trying to figure out that piece and how it worked.
Yeah.
And had a couple of travel trailers, and we got a motorhome now. And so now we spend 2, 3, 4 months a year away from the office and work remotely.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, if I'm going to work remotely, I have to engage with the staff. So we use Zoom and all the other video conferencing apps. And I have a little hotspot that I take around so I can sit out at a picnic table if I want to. And that's worked well for me. A lot of campgrounds will have Wi-Fi options. Now, as you can imagine, some of them are crowded and some of them aren't ideal.
Yeah.
But it's allowed me to work, have peace. I'll work 2 or 3 hours in the morning, and my wife and I may walk on the beach an hour later, and that's a pretty good lifestyle.
No, it sounds great. What's some of the hardships that you've noticed when trying to do that? What are some of the downsides of trying to pull that off? Besides, of course, the worry and anxiety of what's going on and what have I done?
Yeah, so from a technology standpoint, just feeling like you have a reliable connection. So if you're traveling, a phone call ahead to wherever you're staying, you can check out what that's like. Mm-hmm. You can carry a hotspot, or you can use your phone for that matter. I have both. Some travelers will use hotspots from Verizon, AT&T, and some others. So because coverage is different in different parts of the country, so they'll just have that. Verizon works fine for me when I have to use it. So if the Wi-Fi at the campground is not great, I'll just pull up my hotspot. Yeah. Now the challenges are sometimes there's a time zone difference, right? So if you're on the West Coast and there's a little bit of a time zone difference from the East Coast, sometimes that's a challenge, but that's obviously workable. Being comfortable with your software, having a reliable portal back at the office where you can actually have decent Zoom correspondences and things like that, which, by the way, Magic Apple helped set that up in my office, and it's absolutely unbelievable. Yeah,
it's really, so his setup's a lot like our setup. It's dual TV, except I think yours are 80-inch TVs. So he has like a video wall. You walk in and you're like, what the hell have I just walked into here? But it's so cool.
It's my favorite room.
Literally, you turn that thing on, you're bigger on his wall than you are in real life. So that's saying something.
So we had the first time we used it, I was in Florida.
Yeah.
And one of my other team members was in Mexico. And then we had one other team member that was on maternity leave. So they pulled us up on the left-hand screen, and we were, like you said, all bigger than the people in the room. But it was so unbelievable. It was really like we were there.
Yeah.
And the right-hand screen, you can share the document or whatever you're looking at. So those types of technology, changes and advances have made working remotely easier.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. I think big pieces of this comes down to, like you said, bandwidth. You got to have internet, right? And that's just become more and more prevalent and available and better, right?
Yep.
So not only is it more available, but it's better and faster, and there's more of it, right?
Yep.
That's a huge piece of it. And then, like we've talked about before, you got to have the right tools in place.
Correct.
And to be able to run a business, remotely, it takes the tools. Now, the other side of that coin that's really important for business owners, if they want to be able to be remote, is the processes part, right? And that's where EOS comes into play, or something that you can say, this is how we do this, so that I don't have to go, oh no, I've got to call Michael and find out how to do this. Michael, how do I solve this problem? You don't have to call me. We already know it. We've put everything in. We know our business and what we do. Tell us a little about what that's been like for you, because I know you've done a really good job with that, yet it's always a challenge and always changes.
Yeah, so for me, processes are everything, right?
Yeah.
So you are just kind of innately good at that. And for me, it's much more of a struggle. But without processes in place, without expectations on how to do things, working remotely is much more difficult.
Yeah.
You can't point to something and say, hey, this is how you should do it this way every time. Look in the SOP in our office, it just is. You have to have that. So basic fundamentals in having a business sort of set up correctly. Mm-hmm. EOS, to me, Traction, the book, really helps spell that out. EO in Nashville, I learned a lot of things from them. And EOS is not the only thing out there, but for me, it's simple and easy, which is what I need.
Yeah.
And
that was what drew me to it too, because I looked at a lot of the other ones that are out there, and there's tons of them, the Rockefeller habits and scaling up and all these other things. There's just so much to them. I just felt like it was, man, I've got to really take a master class just to understand the process. And EOS for me just dumbed it right on down to my level that I could get on board with it, understand it. Some of the key components in that, and I'd be interested to hear what your thought is, accountability chart, right? Having the right people in the right seat, setting the right expectations. Of those things, what's the best part of that tool as far as the process building and the EOS part of it? What's been the most helpful piece of that?
So the accountability chart is great because, like you said, you kind of break up the hierarchy of your organization, and you distinguish what those roles are. Mm-hmm. And you can also take those roles and kind of blueprint that on the employee review process. So when you review them, you're making sure those roles are taken care of and they have the capacity to do it and want to do it and they get it and that sort of thing.
GWC.
The GWC, that's right. So that's one of the tools, the EOS tools that they talk about in the book. And if you talk to an EOS person, they'll talk about that as well. But the cash flow drivers are important. Mm-hmm. I think there's 33 tools. I may be wrong. And the so-called
I think something
toolbox.
like that, like the eight points, and then the tools outside the points.
Yeah.
The eight divisions of running a business, whatever. The thing that I think was the most game changer for me and for Magic Apple was the level 10 meetings. So just having to where now I have my meeting for departments weekly, once a week. This tool was so strong for us because we tended to kick a dead horse. We would answer the question, we would bury the question. Then somebody would come along after, dig it up, put shoes back on it, run it back out in front and say, but what about this? And I was like, we just buried that 5 minutes ago. Let's go bury it again. And that was a weekly thing that we had to deal with. Now, when we do the level 10 with Traction, it's helped us to, identify, discuss, and solve problems, and you're putting them to bed. So what that allows for me to do as a guy that wants to be able to travel and still have a business and be in it is now I don't have to be available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I'm in my meetings and we get all of our stuff done, right? Or get stuff, you know what I'm going to say, get stuff done in those meetings versus having to answer a bunch of questions. By empowering your team, not only does that alleviate and give you more time, right? But it also gives them more freedom and time to where maybe if they want to do some remote work, they're allowed to do that. So you said you got some people that are on maternity leaves and stuff like that. Do you have any other remote workers as well?
We have a marketing person that works remotely. He's in Mexico traveling. Uh-huh. My clinic administrator now can work 1 day a week. She lives in Clarksville, so it's an hour drive roughly to the south side of town. So she'll work remotely, generally 1 day every other week or so. Mm-hmm. My sales manager will work 1 day a week as well remotely. So it's empowered them to have families. We have a meaningful culture now, so we can spend more energy on not just talking about culture, but actually caring about people and demonstrating that by giving them that flexibility. So it's not just me; it's helped everyone. And now a meeting with a patient for 20 years we did telemedicine before people called it that. We called it virtual consultations way, way back before. But now it's easy to do that. Anybody can do that. So helping a patient with a question, or somebody that may live in South Dakota that wants to come to us for surgery, we can have a meaningful dialogue, see each other, and talk about the options and goals and expectations he might have. So it facilitates business, not just interfacing with your teams, your management department, or whatever level 10 that might be in, but also that customer.
Yeah, well, I've heard a lot about it's not just about the ability to work remote by tools and stuff, but it's about a culture that supports it. That's what I've kind of been hearing a lot when I'm talking to people. It's about this, having a culture that supports the idea of remote work, and not only making it available, but encouraging it and letting your people have that same balance. Do you feel like you want to be able to have more people to work remote and offer that more in the future, or is it something that you're struggling with?
We're completely open to that. So it allows us, because we're a small company of 14 to 15 people, non-surgical teams.
Yeah.
So we can attract talent that we might not be able to attract before, because we can offer that option.
Yeah.
So they can live in Chattanooga, for that matter, and still, depending on what they do, they can still work and contribute and do well. We have a company that we work with out of Jacksonville, Florida. They're not a part of our, they're not an employee or employee team, but they are actually just as intimately involved in our business, and that's because of the remote component.
Yeah. I mean, our sales manager and sales trainer, he lives in Sarasota.
There you go.
And he's a part of our business as much as anybody else is. And it's the idea of remote work and that balanced life isn't just for the owner, it's for everybody.
Yep.
Everybody has a life and deserves to have that balance, right?
It's a game changer. COVID actually expedited this, and
I agree fully.
A lot of companies decided to embrace it to the point that now they're having to pull back on that. A lot of the big companies, you need to hear about all of them actually.
Yeah.
And so they're trying to figure out, okay, we got all this real estate that we got 1,500 offices and we got 200 people in the office.
Yep.
Let's force these people back. But the reality is the equilibrium is going to settle to where you're going to have remote workers that are going to be permanently remote, partially remote, some kind of flex schedule. And I think just embracing the fact that technology allows us to do it and do it well and support the culture that we all think is important.
Yeah.
So it's been good for us.
Awesome. So, with your current setup, is there anything that you would like to see different with how you're doing stuff? Is there any obstacles you currently have with the way you're doing stuff that would prevent, or do you need to change to allow for more remote work?
So when I first started working remotely, I decided I needed a printer. And I needed a cool printer that's Bluetooth. I could take it out and sit it on a picnic table. It doesn't have to be wired to anything. It's got a battery. And it was cool, but I didn't really need it, right?
Yeah.
I need a laptop, a decent laptop. As you know from last night, my laptop's huge.
He has like a 28-inch laptop?
It's like a 17-inch monster. Now, you can't fly and open the darn thing while you're flying because it's just huge.
And it comes with the wheels and a luggage carry thing on it.
Yeah, its own dollies built in. But anyway, so it's my desktop replacement. So when I'm in my RV, I just sit it on the dinette table. If I want the printer, fine. And it works beautifully. I've got an extra battery. I can hot swap if I need to.
Yeah.
That's not a thing people do anymore, but I have that option. I think the thing I'm looking forward to is as Elon Musk continues to sort of develop his Starlink system, I'll probably have that installed permanently. I understand Thor Motor Coach, if I'm not mistaken, is going to make that a part of going forward.
I think so. I think they are. Because we actually got a Starlink here at the office and set it up and tested and everything, and it worked great. I mean, we were able to make calls over it. There wasn't any issues. I think it's just a matter of location and where they're all at right now.
Right.
But like we said, internet is definitely available out there. We've got a product we're testing from T-Mobile right now because they've got a really cool little hotspot tower thing that you can take with you, and we're testing it right now. And it's cheap. It's like $50 a month for unlimited.
That's great.
And that's inexpensive. And there's others that are out there that do carry the triple SIMs and that kind of stuff that allow you to have T-Mobile, Verizon, and AT&T all on the same device, and it just picks off whichever is stronger. There's plenty of really cool technology stuff out there.
Right.
But it has to equate to cost, right?
Right.
The one that we use in our RV that we were inspired to get from knowing you and seeing how happy you and your wife were, we got one and have been using it for about a year and a half or 2 years. We've gone camping a couple times, and it's just been it's a game changer. But what we did is there's a unit that comes that's the Connect TV. I don't remember. Of course, I can't remember because I'm older and I lose my memory. WineGuard. It's the WineGuard.
We have WineGuard too.
Yeah. So it's the basic one. Well, we use their service. Man, that is expensive.
Yeah. I don't use it at all.
It could cost us $120 a week for internet, and that thing is like, there has to be a better, and there is. We've just been too lazy to go after it. So maybe with this podcast, I'll learn some better stuff and what to use. So what was your hotspot again?
So we use a Verizon hotspot.
Nice.
And AT&T has a great one too. So AT&T out here is good. And T-Mobile. Again, it depends on the part of the country that you're in. If you're in the Northwest, it may be a different setup.
Gotcha.
The camping world out there, you can plug into a lot of organizations and they can tell you where to go.
So much information out there on that stuff. So what's one piece of advice you would give to somebody wanting to do this?
Work remotely.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid of it.
It.
Test it locally first. Go to a local campground. Make sure you've kind of vetted your system. The clarity's there, and then just venture out from there. And just be a little bit careful about when you go to state parks and national parks.
Yeah,
the national parks and state parks are beautiful, but sometimes you'll have more limited service. So if you got something big going on that week and you need to be kind of connected to the office, I would probably go to more of a private place for that. Or you can go to a coffee shop, or whatever. They have Wi-Fi. So, if you're serious about it, it's pretty easy to do. Yeah.
I like that. Michael, tell us how we can reach you if we want to get our hair done.
So wegrowhair.com. Easy to remember. Describes what we do. The local number is 615-376-6010. So, check us out. Love to be able to help you or someone you might know and love.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Like I said, one of the nicest guys I've ever met. Have valued his friendship for the last 8 years, and I continue to value it for hopefully many, 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 many more.
And you got great hair.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. It is nice to have a full head of hair.
Yes, it is.
Listen, thank you for being on the show, Michael. Again, it's really appreciate you being on one of our first 4 shows.
My pleasure.
It was a huge, huge thing. This has been the Wandering Worker Podcast. You can find us on all the socials. You can check us out at wanderingworkerpodcast.com, or you can check us out at magicapple.com to learn all about the tools and the things that we can offer. There's also information on those sites to be able to get some tips and tricks if you want to start working remotely. So again, thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate you.
We'll see you next time.
Yes, sounds great.